Are there words about a pandemic at this point?
No, we're not at all, and we have it totally under control.
We think we have it very well under control. We pretty much shut it down. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear. We can hold that down, as we're saying, to 100,000. It's a horrible number. We all together have done a very good job.
As the nation surpassed 4 million COVID cases and over 145,000 deaths this week.
It's something that we have tremendous control of. I think we're going to win faster than people think, I hope.
You're going to lose a number of people to the flu, but you're going to lose more people by putting a country into a massive recession or depression. The virus is going to disappear. I feel about vaccines like I feel about tests. This is going to go away without a vaccine.
The coronavirus itself, SARS-CoV-2, is here to stay.
As the U.S. surpasses a staggering 400,000 deaths, the incoming CDC director says another 100,000 could die in the next month.
It is what it is. It's going to fade away. We're in very good shape.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your response to this crisis?
I'd rate it a 10. I think we've done a great job.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Mike Pounds.
I will eat your ass.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Thursday, end of the week. We got a big show for you all today. We have, of course, Fox News divided. Interesting. And they're going to talk about one of the world's worst bosses. We've got that story. It's fascinating. We got Tucker Carlson making the case for vaccines, inadvertently, of course. Fun. Let's see what he says. We've got, of course, Jen Psaki doing a sake bomb on herself. Fail. Sad. We're talking about that. We've got Matt Gaetz and Steve Bannon basically openly plotting the takeover of the government. And then labor news, Activision Blizzard. We have workers that are officially on strike. So I have some good news on that. So we're going to dive into it. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. It helps us out, as always. And, of course, you can support us by doing super chats. We'd love to read those during the breaks or during the show as well, because we kind of do the show together a little bit. And also Twitch. Hello, I'm Christina, by the way. I'm Christina, very based. Follow everybody at her channel. She is doing amazing work. I couldn't be more proud. All right. That said, let's do it. Let's dive in. Stories. Go. Fox News, Emily Compano had stunned her fellow Fox News hosts when she cheered on a mass Zoom firing of 900 employees. So now this had happened with the online mortgage company Better.com. What are they better at? Apparently they're better at firing people, at least in the worst way possible, in the most public way possible. Well done. Well done. They are currently mired in a very nasty public relations disaster. At the CEO, Vishal Garg, fired 15% of the company's workforce in a 3-minute Zoom call. So that video has gone viral. You want to talk about a public disaster. Look, you're going to fire people over Zoom. Zoom. What is wrong with you? The way that I think about it, first thing that came to mind when I was like, fired people over a Zoom call, is somebody breaking up with you via text. I've never had the experience, but it seems super, like, I don't know, classless to do that. Now, as a result, the number of the firm's top executives have also resigned from the company, with sources telling the Daily Beast that actually more will follow. So you not only have a massive PR disaster, but also you've got, people that are inside the company that are like, oof, no, walking away on this one. This is horrible. Now, apparently this CEO is no stranger to controversy. And so, look, he had threatened partners, his former partner, I believe. And of course, there's all sorts of allegations of mismanagement and all of that. Now, let me just say that this is why worker co-ops are better. Because it seems like this guy, Garg, is very unhinged, erratic, and had actually, and this is ironic, it being on Fox News, actually perpetuated a strike in the war on Christmas, firing people right before the holiday. They destroyed people's Christmas. Again, you fired 900 people weeks before the holiday. What else do you call it? But now, we're going to go to Fox News here. This happened on Outnumbered, where Campano is absolutely filled with just glee over the fact that 900 people lost their jobs in one of the worst ways possible. Take a look.
I loved this, actually. I loved this so much. The productivity of those 900 individuals averaged 2 hours a day, even though they were paid for 8. And I understand the indelicate nature of this, but part of my role as a federal attorney when I was managing and acting director was terminating individuals, and I did it with the utmost respect and care. But I also had to do it with a lot of security measures in place. I love that for 900 people, he stayed safe, and he let them know that their theft was no longer tolerated. So for me, good riddance, and I feel bad that he's now having to capitulate to the other execs at his company and apologize for it. Sorry, guys, bye. For all of them, they're snowflakes. They're probably millennials and Zs. Yep.
Very surprising.
They need to learn work ethic.
Wow! Theft! Oh, yeah, well, we're not going to tolerate your theft, stealing from the company. You're probably just Gen Z and millennials anyway. Ugh. What a sociopath. Total sociopath. You know who would be the world's worst boss, besides this guy, apparently, Garg? Campano. He would be an awful, awful person to work for. Holy shit. Millennials, they just don't have a work ethic. That's what it is. You don't have a work ethic. Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, you want to talk about work ethic, right? What about the ethics of being a non-shitty boss? How about that? Fuck off. What a miserable, miserable person. You're going to laugh about people that are being fired around the holidays. Literal Scrooge. That's what this is. And by the way, he wants us to believe that 15% of his entire workforce that he hired, that his company had hired, was lazy. 900 people, lazy. Oh, so lazy, and they're stealing too. Really? Where's the proof of that? Where's the proof of that? No, I'm not buying it at all. I'm not saying that there aren't lazy workers. I've worked alongside them before. But to say that the entire workforce, or 15% of it, all those people, lazy? Come on. No, not at all. In fact, we have former employees, some of them coming out in the open, some of them not, because, and here's the other thing, if they were stealing from the company, part of their, firing involved them actually getting a little bit of a severance package, right? And so I think it was an additional month or two of pay. And so, if they were stealing, if they were so bad, they're so lazy, why would you let them go with a fairly generous package? I mean, that seems very, very strange to me. It doesn't seem to add up. But now one former employee who has to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation said this. Quote, "I thought I was safe. I had perfect reviews and thought I was an integral part of the team. It's a bummer because I know I worked really hard to help build up that company, and it looks like I just wasted my time." Yeah, 4 month severance package. So why would you give that, again, for employees that have worked so hard and have gotten great reviews, and given a severance package, why would you then turn around after firing them in a 3-minute call and accuse them of theft and being lazy? Makes absolutely no sense. No sense at all. Now, the former employee who had worked with the company for 1.5 years said Wednesday that the recent apology letter was nothing more than a PR stunt. So he had come out after this, went viral, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry about firing people, but I'm sorry about the way that I did it. It was very classless. It didn't look good." Now, here's what that person said. "My big issue is I know how much I put into the company, helped building it up for him, and he didn't even address any of his derogatory comments at all. I mean, it's just a PR move. It didn't really do much for me because, I mean, I feel like he basically trashed everyone out the door. Very unprofessional. I'm just really disappointed. All the work and success that I achieved there, and then to be kicked on the way out the door is really unacceptable." Does that sound like a lazy employee to me? To you? Doesn't sound like it to me. And that's the reality for so many of these workers. In fact, there was another former employee interviewed by CNN Business and the staff, and they were just blown away by the CEO's remarks and sudden firing. Now, as ABC7 had reported, Garg had been involved in controversy before, as evidenced by an email he had sent to staff that was obtained by Forbes back in 2020. Here's what he said. This was a company email. "You are too damn slow. You are a bunch of dumb dolphins. So stop it. Stop it. Stop it right now. You are embarrassing me." That's a literal work email. What? Okay, for one, dolphins are actually very smart. So you're wrong there, factually incorrect. But that's unhinged. That person does not sound like a sane person. What is wrong with you? Wow. Now, one former employee who asked not to be identified and recently won an award for his performance at the company. So they're like, "Hey, here's an award. By the way, now you're fired later." Saying this, quote, "I got promoted, and he's out there trying to portray everyone as lazy and stealing money? That is messed up. I'd rather be broke than have whatever is going on in his head." 100%. Another employee who came out in the open this time, Christian Chapman, who was a former underwriter for Better.com. So now this guy had worked in the mortgage business for about 20 years. So he's got 2 decades of experience and was one of the 900 fired. So he also reported that he had recently completed a very positive performance review call with his manager. And wait, again, all of these employees have come out and they're like, "Wait, we got good reviews. Nobody had any problems with our work." And then just to randomly get invited in the call and then to get fired, and then not just to get fired, but to be called lazy, and then have that propagate onto Fox News, to them have those people then call them lazy and thieves. Again, that's what the word she used. Theft. "Oh, you're snowflakes, and you're stealing for the company, and you're so unproductive, and that's why you got fired." Just beyond the pale. They hate workers. They hate workers, but it gets worse. Employees also described a chaotic work culture at the company led by Garg, who again sends weirdo emails, consistently drops like F-bombs in meetings, which, look, I don't have a problem with the swearing in meetings, but again, there is a level of professionalism that you might want to maintain and good treatment of your workers. So what I'm saying, like, if you're in a meeting and you're like, "Oh, this effing thing, right? Really screwing us over, and we just got to work harder," stuff like that, that's fine. But then if you're in a meeting and you're like, "You effing dolphin," or whatever kind of phrase anyone wants to use, you're too slow, F you, F your family. Well, that's a problem. That's abusing your employees and going unhinged. And apparently, Garg is known for that kind of flying off the handle at people. Now, Chapman said he has now been through 4 different layoffs at various mortgage companies, but none as, quote, obtuse and dispassionate as this. So my read of the situation here is the guy was just looking for a reason to fire people. That's really it. he fired a bunch of people because the mortgage, and right now, understand, like, here's the thing. The mortgage industry is going through a little bit of a tough time now. Now, during the pandemic, things were great for the mortgage industry. You had a bunch of people that were refinancing. And so they're going through the refinancing their mortgages. A lot of business that had picked up, housing, because people were staying home, right? Not only that, but you have, of course, big investors like BlackRock buying up all of this property, private companies buying up all this property and turning it into rentals. And so, you know, with all of that boom, you had a lot of business during the pandemic. Not anymore. It's starting to slow down. But here's the thing, right? Now, the company itself is valued at $6.9 billion. They literally refer to it as a unicorn status for this company because it was so massively successful. It's actually ranked at #1 on LinkedIn's top startups of 2021 and 2020, but apparently they don't treat their workers very well. Obviously. Now, the SoftBank-backed mortgage, and this is even more of a kick in the pants. The SoftBank-backed mortgage lender announced in May that it was going public through a special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC. It's the kind of thing that is actually also funding Donald Trump's new social media venture. The day before the layoffs, the firm announced it received a $750 million in cash. $750 million in cash as part of an amended deal with the investors, according to TechCrunch. That would mean Better has $1 billion in cash. Now, did they need to fire 900 people when they're sitting at $1 billion? Not necessarily. Not that I know. But we do know it made a lot of money. Now, again, at the same time, as I mentioned, the mortgage market is starting to slow down. Interest rates are creeping back up. Less people are refinancing. And so, again, the company would eventually probably need to downsize or something. Or, maybe, I don't know, the shareholders and executives might take a little less in profit. Obviously, we knew the direction that they went into. And again, I understand that you need to maybe sometimes let people go if things start to get a little hard. But again, in this case, when you're sitting at $1 billion and you still fire people and then add the insult of literally insulting them, calling them thieves and firing them over Zoom in such a public way, it's really beyond the pale. Really beyond the pale these days. And so it's incredibly gross, super gross boss, and super gross people that are defending that. Now, that said, I've got one more video here of this discussion. And again, I focused on Campano, but what's interesting is what Kennedy had to say. And actually, it was very surprising because this had actually sort of divided the panel a little bit. So let me show you what Kennedy had to say.
If you know anyone who's been let go right before Christmas, it's an awful
about to.
thing. Yeah, even in the best of circumstances, when your boss knows something about leadership and dignity and grace, it's incredibly tough. But to do that with 900 people on a Zoom call in the classless way that he did, people remember that. People will remember his company and go in a completely opposite direction, as has much of his leadership team in communications and PR, because they know he's probably a horrible person to work for, and his company is clearly a disaster.
Yeah, and I said he's about to know that because maybe he'll quit. Maybe he'll fire himself, Emily.
All right, so look, as much as Kennedy's voice is like nails on a chalkboard, she's absolutely right. She makes a great point. Yes, terrible person to work for, completely classist in the way that they've done it. So I agree. And what's interesting is, as I said, when you start to lose half the panel on Fox, you know you're doing something wrong defending this. But Campano, understand that she absolutely loves that. Because here's the thing. She has a legitimate hatred for working people, especially younger people who, as I mentioned, were not the only people fired. I mean, again, you had people who are in the industry, for decades. They were let go, and these are people, again, who had glowing, excellent reviews and had not done anything wrong. But again, Campano couldn't resist because her first inclination was to support the authoritarian. And in this case, an authoritarian is the CEO. It doesn't matter what CEO it is, doesn't matter the company, that's still an authoritarian position. That's just the way the modern companies are structured. Even if, the company that you work for or the boss might be fantastic, the boss is still an authoritarian position. Simple as that. Nonetheless, she also sided not only with the CEO, who in this case was massively wrong, but also she decided to side with money. As usual with these people. All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ravaging Wolverine. I appreciate that. Very kind call back to one of the stories I had done before. Let's see. Good segment on how the labor shortage is misleading since many companies aren't even hiring people that apply. Yeah, it's true. It's true. They just want to complain and want to make sure that their labor costs do not go up. All right. Let's move on. Let's go to COVID. Okay. We almost had insanity in the control room. Almost. All right. Fox host Tucker Carlson might have just inadvertently made the case for vaccination against COVID-19.
So somebody who knows him told me, and I should be interested in getting your take on this, that getting COVID emasculated him. It changed him. It feminized him. It weakened him as a man. Do you think that's...
Well, I think he was very seriously ill.
Oh, for sure he was.
And I think... one of the things we have learned from COVID is people who are 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds overweight tend to have fared very badly.
Sure.
Now, we don't talk about it
But
much.
the virus itself, this is true, does tend to take away the life force in some people, I notice. I mean, it does feminize people. No one ever says that, but it's true.
Okay. Well then, now this is a discussion on Boris Johnson. He's obviously speaking with Nigel Farage, two terrible people, actually three terrible people. But I mean, what a weirdo kind of discussion. The COVID-19. What if it? I heard that it feminizes you. That it turns you into like a woman or something. I mean, that's very disturbing. For one, that's not necessarily true. So I know, and there's transgender people will be like, wait, what? Does what? No, it does not. It does not. So get your vaccine. Do not get COVID-19, please. But it is a weird statement. It is weird. And here's the thing. Why does everything have to be couched from the far right in weirdo masculinity? You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to worry about men. We got to talk about the men. We got masculinity. Men. The problem with men being feminized. We got too many feminized men. No, what we need to have is we need to have masculine men, super masculine men with big, rippling, sweaty man chests. Yeah, that's what a man is about. Yeah, dude. A lot of these people seem to spend a lot of time, thinking about dude. I'm just saying, okay, look, it's 2021. You can be gay. That's totally fine. Come out of the closet. It's totally acceptable. This is, hey, we're very accepting bunch. Come out. Just come out. If you're constantly thinking about men, totally fine. Just come out and be honest with us and yourself. You want to wear dresses? Totally fine. Want to be a little feminized? Totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to judge you. Nobody here is going to judge you. It's just they just have this weird, bizarre fixation on a certain brand of so-called masculinity And it's just really weird, on the far right. I mean, again, you watch that, they're always focused really weirdly on men, masculinity, ball size, whatever. And so it's weird. Now think about it this way, though. If this does help get, people get vaccinated against COVID-19, then well, sure, I'll take it, right? I mean, like some weirdo, alt-righters watching this was like, I want to be feminine. Oh my God, maybe I'll get a COVID-19 vaccine. Like, okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Not exactly where I want to go, but hell, whatever gets you vaccinated, I guess that'll work. I'll take it. But here's the thing. There is a little bit of a truth to the idea that COVID can affect men in a certain way. Now, again, this isn't, it's ridiculous to say that like, oh no, it attacks your masculinity and it makes you feminine. No. There's no truth to that at all. But it can erect. I just gave it away. It can affect something that people would consider to be a very masculine trait. And that is, of course, your erections. I know, gave it away there a little bit. Couldn't help myself. Got a little too excited. No, earlier this year, 2 studies came out that said that men who have had COVID are about 6 to 6.5 times more likely, 5 to 6.5 more times likely to develop erectile dysfunction. So one of them was published in the World Journal of Men's Health, and another was in the March publication in the medical journal Andrology. Now, the Andrology survey was actually conducted online between April 7th and May 4th, 2020 in Italy. At that time, Italy was hit very, very hard with COVID-19. And this survey, which was among 100 sexually active men. So understand, these are small sizes. Again, nothing to worry about, guys, with the small size. But no, it looked at sexually active men, and 25 of whom who had tested positive for COVID-19, and found that the prevalence of erectile dysfunction was significantly higher, about 28% among the 25 who had tested positive for COVID-19 compared to the 75 who had not. Those who had COVID-19 were over 5.6 times more likely to have erectile dysfunction, and those who had ED were over 5.2 more times likely to have had COVID-19. So, hey, look, you get COVID, as a young man, or even as an older man, you're possibly more likely to end up having some problems down the line, because and look, it's more likely to happen with severe cases. But what happens is that COVID-19 can get into that area and damage blood vessels, making it hard to, get hard, I guess. I mean, I don't think that's a scientific term, but I can imagine how that particular situation might be a little bit emasculating, not to mention, of course, the other stuff that COVID-19 can do to you that we don't even know. And so that's not counting death. We're talking about long COVID. We're talking about organ damage, heart problems, lung problems, and again, ED. And so, I think that's a good case for you to get vaccinated, because the vaccine has been proven to be safe and effective at preventing severe COVID-19 symptoms and death. And so, safe and effective, Nicki Minaj's friends, cousins, balls, notwithstanding. Isn't it amazing that I have to do that? That's a segment like that. But hey, if it gets dudes to vaccinate, why not? Go to Saki. Saki to me. Oh, I need to stop. I just need to stop. Somebody stop me. I'm saying terrible things. All right. Wow. All right. Yeah, I think I got it. The media tends to love Joe Biden's press secretary, Jen Psaki. The back and forth between her and Peter Doocy tend to get CNN and MSNBC hearts aflutter. And look, even I, enjoy those once in a while. However, sometimes, and it happens very rarely, but sometimes, these Psaki bombs dropped during daily White House briefings go off in her face. One such example did not involve Peter Doocy, but actually did involve an NPR reporter, Mara Liasson, who asked a simple but really good question. Take a look.
Look at what we've done over the course of time. We've quadrupled the size of our testing plan. We've cut the cost significantly over the past few months. And this effort to ensure insurers you're able to get your tests refunded means 150 million Americans will be able to get free tests.
Complicated though. Why not just make them free and give them out and have them available everywhere?
Should we just send one to every American?
Maybe.
Then what happens if every American has one test? How much does that cost? And then what happens after that?
All I know is that other countries seem to be making them available in greater quantities for less money.
Well, I think we share the same objective, which is to make them less expensive and more accessible, right? Every country's going to do that differently.
Wow. I mean, what do you just want to give them free? What? Yeah, we should. I mean, again, excellent question from Liasson. This was terrible optics. What an awful answer from Jen Psaki. Wow. Yes, we should give everyone free tests. That is what a civilized country does. Look, we are still dealing with COVID-19. We have cases of Omicron, the variant, that are in Florida. I'm sorry, not in Florida, in California. Probably going to make its way to Florida pretty soon. This is, more infectious than Delta variant, according to early studies. And by the way, there are people still in this country who are unvaccinated. And so there is a problem. And by the way, even if you're vaccinated, you can still get it. You still have a chance of spreading it. And therefore, this is why tests are really, really important. You don't always know if you've got a cold or flu or if it's COVID. That's why, hey, we should all have rapid tests. We should all have the tests available to take at home. So now, here's the hypocrisy part of this, okay? So if Sarah Huckabee Sanders, imagine Trump were still president, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was like, oh, well, what do you want us to do? Just give out free tests? Every establishment journalist would be like, oh my God, how could she say something like that? We're in the middle of COVID. And they would be correct. Look, a flippant answer like that, with the derision in her voice, there's absolutely no place for this. Again, it's one thing to push back aggressively against Fox News' stupid questions. Jen Psaki's really good at that. But this is a legitimate question that was given a sarcastic answer. Other countries do this better. That is a fact. And so the problem here, though, isn't just Psaki's answer. It's actually more indicative of the government's response to the COVID-19. And so, I mean, look, the Biden administration, they're basically saying about a lot of different priorities, and not just testing, but, things like paid leave, for example, or expanding Medicare. It just costs too much. We can't do it. It costs too much. Says the government, the same government, who I believe it was yesterday, just passed a $768 billion war budget. I mean, more expensive than getting people tests, more expensive than Build Back Better would be for an entire year. And they're like, oh, no problem. $768 billion immediately. Yes, military. Yes, Pentagon. Anything you want, Pentagon. Yes, of course. We will give you even $28 billion more than the president had even asked for. And by the way, that is hundreds of billions of dollars too much. And this is the thing too. We're left less wars than we were during the Trump administration. We left Afghanistan. Why do we need even more money in the war budget? That total insanity. Nobody ever talks about the fiscal irresponsibility of handing over hundreds of billions of dollars every year to the goddamn Pentagon for no reason. No. And so understand, this is not the cost, right? The cost is not the real problem for the government, okay? What it is that it's big pharma profits. If it wanted, the government could use its power of negotiations to get the tests cheaply and hand them out to every single American. They can afford to do that. Yes, that is a thing. And again, that's not just a thing. That is a literal role of the government during the pandemic. That is part of the job they are supposed to do to protect the American public in a public health crisis. But they don't. Instead, what they're doing is, again, they're not using their power to negotiate prices. What they're doing, actually, what the administration and Psaki was talking about was, oh, now we've authorized a plan to allow certain people with insurance to get a rebate, basically. So instead of you paying, I mean, you're going to first pay out of pocket, but then to your insurance company, but then we're going to reimburse the insurance companies for what you paid, so the insurance companies will get their cut, and then Big Pharma will get their cut, and then, of course, at least you won't have to pay anything, but everyone else is going to get paid. And by the way, you are going to pay it through your taxes. And so that's a lot of corporate welfare going on here. And they want it to be this way so that their friends in Big Pharma and in the insurance companies can make bigger and bigger profits. It is absolutely gross. And so, look, I'm not making this case like, oh, you know, we shouldn't trust anything the pharmaceutical companies come up with, you know, like vaccines or anything. No, I'm pro-vaccine, I'm pro-science, but I'm anti-Big Pharma simply because their business model is about greed. And that's it. I despise Big Pharma. I despise their business model. I think they should be nationalized 100%. Most of the vast majority of research and development is publicly funded anyway, in which these not insurance companies, but these pharmaceutical companies then come in, take the fruits of that publicly funded research, and then basically act as the middleman and say, okay, we're going to take that, we're going to patent that, and then we're going to basically upcharge it and sell it to you. Incredible. And by the way, also sell it to the government at high prices, which they are not allowed to negotiate with Medicare, which is the main driver of why prices are so high, the fact that there is no negotiation, no power to be able to set the prices, and they can get off with, basically robbing the American people. That's the real problem here. That is the problem with Big Pharma, not the stuff that they actually create, which generally, again, in the case of the COVID vaccine, safe and effective. It's the business model, and that business model is nothing but greed. Nothing but greed. And so, look, her flippant and dismissive attitude, going back to Psaki, is, and basically toward the question of, should the government actually do its job as a member of the government, is gross, and it's neoliberalism 101. But again, it's not just testing, it's insurance, right? There was no bill to put forward Joe Biden's public option, which during a pandemic would have been the right time to put it forward. What did the Democrats do? They did nothing. Biden did not pressure them to do it. In fact, of course, look, as soon as Joe Biden won the election, he stopped running on the public option, stopped talking about it. I'm not talking about it now. They never meant to do it. He hasn't said a peep about this since his campaign ended, despite the fact that the public option is actually incredibly popular among both Democrats and Republicans, and Medicare for All is even more popular among Democrats. So what that says to me is that they never wanted it in the first place. Why? Because it's always been a foil to Medicare for All. He just wanted to shut down Bernie Sanders while making sure to placate his friends in the insurance and pharmaceutical industries. Disaster. Disaster. So now, the reaction to Psaki from public health experts and journalists was swift, and let me give you that. Here's the Boston Globe's Matt Carlson saying this, quote, Jen Psaki somewhat mockingly asked a reporter at White House Daily Press Briefing if the U.S. should be sending out rapid COVID-19 tests to every household. The U.K. can order one pack containing 7 tests every day. New Hampshire, he added, offered free at-home rapid tests to all residents and ran out within a day. It does seem as though there is sufficient demand for free at-home rapid tests. Jeremy Faust, MD, who is an ER physician, said this. Last week, I said the U.S. government should mail free rapid tests out. Apparently, press secretary disagrees, and this is literally the worst minute at the White House podium she has ever had, and I couldn't agree more. He added, let's go back to the drawing board. Tatiana Powell, MD, said this. Med Twitter, myself included, had no shortage of feelings about that response. We're approaching the 2-year mark in this pandemic. Home rapid tests should be everywhere and free. And if we run out when we send one to every home, we're doing something very wrong. 100%. Yale Associate Professor of Research and Epidemiology for Infectious Disease, Greg Gonzalez, says this, at Press Secretary, the answer was terrible, flippant, wrong. Rapid tests are hard to get, expensive, and could be a key intervention in fighting COVID-19. Other countries have figured out better ways to get these tools into the hands of their citizens. Do better. True. Craig Spencer, MD, added, many are ridiculing this dismissive and out-of-touch take by press secretary on COVID tests, but for me, it's the how much does it cost part. We spent billions and billions on vaccines that we would have never considered charging for. Tests could be, different. Howard Foreman added, generally think press secretary does a good job. Not here. She should apologize for her tone. She should be better prepared for answering this question. We can and should be able to meet the challenge as our peer OECD nations do. Rapid testing in USA is a failure. Fix it. Fix it. And then finally, Emily Smith, who was assistant professor at GW Public Health, epidemiologist, added, Psaki scoffs when asked about free tests is a hallmark of strategies everywhere. A hallmark of strategies everywhere. She lauds strict FDA review, which many note is a problem. We lack plans for equitable vaccine delivery locally and globally. We need better masks and better mask policies. The Biden administration seems clueless. 100% agree. Now, understand that these people are not right-wingers. These are medical professionals in the field who are fighting against COVID-19. These people are frustrated, understandably, at the lackluster response from this administration. And again, I'm sorry, because I know immediately some of you are going to be like, well, Trump's was worse and it would have been worse. Okay, and that's not an excuse for the failures of this current administration who have been in power for the last year. Yeah, I'm sorry, but you can't sit there and blame the last administration for every single thing that is going wrong that the current administration actually does have control over. Yes, Trump made a lot of massive missteps in the pandemic response, and he did set up the Biden administration to be behind. The Biden administration has had a year to go and fix that and to work on these things. Did he do so? Not necessarily. Again, Democrats control 2/3 of government. 2/3 of government. And what have they been able to do? Not a whole lot. Yet you had a COVID relief bill that gave billions of dollars in corporate welfare, and regular people got a $1,400 check and some unemployment benefits. All right. Now, the thing is, it's actually less in unemployment benefits and in COVID relief than Republicans under Trump had given, because they understood, hey, if we don't do something, our beloved stock market is going to crash, and then we're going to lose the election. And now, of course, Trump's dumbass still lost the election because, and once again, COVID, and the terrible response. But here's the thing. Again, For Biden, he had a bipartisan corporate infrastructure bill. What does that do? That privatized roads and bridges, as well as a smattering of other different things, and it was massively watered down. This is something that Joe Manchin, corporations couldn't wait to do. This didn't have anything for regular people, okay? And again, even the benefits, and there will be benefits to rebuilding our infrastructure, obviously, but those are not going to be immediate, okay? Those are not going to be immediate. It's not going to make people feel like their lives have been improved in any material way. And I'm not saying that there isn't good things that the Biden administration has done either. When you're talking about the child tax credits, well, I read an article today. Child tax credits have been hitting people's banks, but only 59% of those who are eligible are actually receiving these. And so those tax credits, and by the way, of those who've received them, a lot of them say, yeah, it's helped a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, well, that means maybe the tax credit should be, I don't know, a little bit larger and help. And again, the stuff that was originally in Build Back Better, before it was stripped out by corporate Democrats like Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, John Tester, and the rest of the corporate wing of the party, would have helped so many people. What's left is barely a shell of itself. And even that is not going to pass. So this is nothing there that you can really point at that the Biden administration has done, or very few things that they have done that will actually materially benefit the average American, working class family's life. And so that's a problem. And again, there are some issues that Biden could have done something on, rescheduling marijuana, doing student loan cancellation. That's things he could absolutely do, and he should do if he wants to have any chance in the midterms for the Democratic Party. But there's things that are out of his control that he's being blamed for, like gas prices. President doesn't control gas, and not only that, but you have the supply chain issue. That's also not his fault. And so, I mean, if you want to get ahead of the messaging, you want to do something, well, then do something. Have the government do its job. And this is something, giving out rapid tests to every American, that's at least something. That's at least something. We're not asking for much, guys. We're just asking for the government to do its job. Just do your job. Okay, let's move on. Go to Steve Bannon. How about that whopper of a military budget? Biden did that. Yes, he absolutely did. And they never had a problem. Joe Manchin, who says he's so concerned, about the national debt, had no problem approving a $768 billion war budget. All right. Next story. Let's do this. Representative Matt Gaetz, along with Steve Bannon, are openly talking about unleashing the shock troops. Take a look.
People didn't like that Donald Trump raised his voice, but sometimes you got to raise your voice to raise a ruckus and to raise an army of patriots who love this country and will fight for her. And if we get more of them in Congress, then that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to operationalize the performance to go right after the people who are imposing the vaccine mandates, who are enriching themselves, and who are selling out the country.
Understand, this is a theory of governing, right? And it's fresh and it's new. This is Trumpism in power. That's why we went to the 4,000 shock troops we have to have that's going to man the government and get them ready now, right? We're going to hit the beach. You have the landing teams and the beachhead teams, all that nomenclature they use when President Trump wins again in 2024 or before.
All right. So why does this sound like more of a military operation than a political one? I understand that they're talking about political. I mean, Gaetz even said, well, when we raise the army and then we put them in office. Okay, I get what you're saying, but why are you talking about shock troops and beachheads and, why are you treating this like a literal war? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, that's really weird. That shit scares people. Again, especially since we're almost a year away from January 6th, which was a literal attack on Congress. Weird phrasing and terminology, but understand this is what excites people on the right. Talking about war and talking about battles and talking about, killing the opponent or destroying them. I mean, that's all they have. It's all they have. And so, but again, under this blustering language about war, well, I mean, again, they're planning a political takeover. And so they're doing it right out in the open. In fact, here they are talking more about it. Take a look.
You're going to have those as the 4,000 political appointees. On Capitol Hill, you're going to have Gaetz and others and no more Trey Gowdy's, no more Powder Puff Derby. This is going to be hardcore accountability at every committee.
Yes, and we are going to go after this administrative state, and we're going to start at the Department of Justice and the FBI. That's the job I want. Send me over to the Judiciary Committee, and their sphincters will tighten because they've been doing a lot of corrupt things over there. The FBI and the Department of Justice have become the enforcement wing of the Democratic Party.
Is that your priority? I mean, I've argued for years now, even when I left inside the Trump administration, before at Breitbart, and then after I left. You need a commission like they had back in the night, a church committee to go through the CIA, all the national security apparatus. You would actually do it from Capitol Hill. You would say, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of the national security apparatus. We're going to get, and by the way,
I don't need a new committee. I just need a gavel, Steve.
And you coming from Pensacola in your district, a super patriot. It's not that we're anti-military at all. No. But whatever this has devolved into, we're anti what this is, right? And this has got to stop.
Well, I mean, we are doing this to vindicate the patriotism of the people who wear the uniform and who serve our country in a variety of ways, in law enforcement and really throughout our society. And those people feel betrayed by what is going on in this town.
All right, so I love the constant language about, oh yeah, no, we're gonna vindicate the people in uniform. How? Oh yeah, oh god, yeah, we're so pro police that we attacked that I supported attacking police on January 6th. Really? That seems odd. We're so in favor of the troops that we're continuously to send them. We want to continuously send them disastrous corporate war after disastrous corporate war, and then when they come back, deny them benefits. That doesn't seem to be pro-military or pro-police at all. Very, very strange. But he also says, well, there's a lot of corrupt things going on in our security apparatus. Says the guy under investigation for child trafficking. Now, look, I'm not a fan of the FBI. I'm not a fan of the CIA. I'm not a fan of the NSA. They've obviously done a ton of things wrong and have targeted the left. But now that the right wing has shown itself to be a great threat to the United States, I mean, and again, you can look at the FBI studies that talk about right-wing terrorism in this country. And by the way, all of that tends to get ignored by both parties that are in office. Again, Obama ignored a lot of the warnings about right-wing, the right-wing extremists in this country because, what would Fox News say? What would the right wing say? I'm so afraid. I don't want to offend them. I don't want to offend the real patriots of this country. But look, they put out these reports. And again, it's true. Right-wing terrorism is incredibly dangerous in this country. Very, very prevalent. Way more than anything that the right tends to point out. Like, oh, Antifa. How many people has Antifa killed? Like 0. Wait, okay. Maybe 1, I think. Compared to the multiple people, the tens of people that right-wing domestic terrorists have killed over the past few years, or the past decades, more so than people who are, more so than the jihadis. And so, I mean, again, these people are dangerous. These people are incredibly dangerous, but they don't discuss that. They don't talk about that. Among the politicians in Capitol Hill, because again, they don't want to offend Republicans, where the violence is clearly coming from their side. nonetheless, as I said before, generally the FBI, CIA, and NSA, the National Security State, has targeted the left. The CIA has done coups in South, in the global South, in order to cement right-wing dictators and right-wing fascists. Now, in this country, when you have the fascists and the right wing that are trying to take over here, they're like, ooh, we might have created a little bit of a problem in allowing this to go on. And so, yes, that's a problem. But again, these are not people like Matt Gaetz and Steve Bannon are with the fash. And so, yes, this guy is under an investigation for child trafficking. Steve Bannon, of course, had been pardoned by Donald Trump after ripping off people of his own base over this We Build the Wall project. He's an absolute criminal and is supporting, once again, January 6th. He helped plan January 6th. He knew that it was happening. He is under investigation for that as well, and wanted both of them supported illegally reinstalling Donald Trump as president. Big problem. So it's real interesting they want to talk about patriotism and corruption and all of that when they actually ignore the real corruption. They really, really do. Again, our government is actually corrupt. It's being held hostage by big donors, corporate money, and the far right. But they see it as, oh, if somebody's doing an investigation into me, well, or my crimes or my corruption, no, let's get the shock troops and take over. Now, understand that the FBI, NSA, and CIA, they're already right-wing organizations. But these people are even further to the right of that, where they have gone into the fascists, and now they want to take over those institutions. And guess what they're going to aim them at? They're going to aim them at the left. They're going to aim them at regular people who are not fascist. So that's a problem. And by the way, same people now complaining about this are the ones who tried to pin Benghazi on Obama. Remember that? The nonstop Benghazi hearings? Ridiculousness, right? And they're totally fine, by the way, with Obama at that same time was droning American citizens overseas without due process. They were totally fine with that. But it's Benghazi. Hillary lied, people died, they say. Ridiculous. It's a total hypocrisy. By the way, they also mention going after the vaccine mandates. So, wait. Now, the people that are affected by the vaccine mandates are federal workers. So, for example, you got public workers, you got police, you got firefighters, etc. Those are the people that, are required to take the COVID-19 vaccine. And yet, these people, again, interact in public. They have dangerous jobs. Wouldn't it make sense to have them be vaccinated, especially if they're dealing with other members of the public and serve a vital role in the community? Again, firefighters having to go into burning buildings. Can't really do that with COVID. It's going to be kind of hard to do if you can't breathe. But no, Republicans say that, well, we support working people by making their workplaces and public areas less safe. Less safe. And allowing COVID to spread among the unvaccinated who are, almost exclusively dying from COVID-19. What a disaster. Absolute disaster. Now, by the way, Steve Bannon might be correct in one thing. Republicans can, absolutely take over the midterms. Now, of course, what did concern me is he's like, oh, well, Trump could be, could take power even before 2024. Oh, not good. Yes, Trump could win in 2024. The 2020 midterms, 2022 midterms could absolutely end up leading to Republicans winning, taking over. And you know why? It's because Democrats, unfortunately, have underestimated the danger of the Republican Party. It's almost as if they have been using the right wing to have more of a check on the left. oh, that's why we need a strong, strong Republican Party. We need the Republican Party to get away from Trumpism because we need a strong Republican Party. And why? Why would you need a strong Republican Party if you're the opposition party? Because they want to stop the left. That's it. They want to stop the left. And not only that, but of course, they have underestimated the danger of the fascist Republican Party at this point, and have also failed to deliver fundamental positive change to the voters, which makes me very concerned for what's going to happen in the midterms and beyond. Dark days ahead. Dark days ahead. All right. One more story here. I got to give you some positivity, some hope. Activision Blizzard workers recently went on strike. They've announced this is a Better ABK Workers Alliance. And now, according to multiple different sources, I'm going to read from MMORPG.com. This comes after days of walkouts by QA teams across Activision Blizzard in support of other testers at Raven Software. So Raven Software. So look, how the games industry works is that you've got bigger studios, bigger publishers like Activision that will purchase smaller studios under a bit of an umbrella for development. So now these smaller studios will develop the software, games, and then the publisher, for example, EA, Activision, will go and publish it and you know, make money, essentially. So now this Raven Software is one of those smaller developers that was purchased under the umbrella of Activision Blizzard, and they had fired a bunch of people, a bunch of testers on Friday. This is some after even relocating at their own expense to work at the company. Now, this is another event in a very long line of problems for the company that owns Hearthstone, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, the Diablo series, and other mainstream games, AAA games that are staples in the gaming community. And it all started back when California launched an investigation into workplace violations. For example, discrimination against employees, female employees specifically, sexual harassment, hostile work environment, and now even allegations of cover-ups of these very issues of CEO that reaches all the way up to the CEO, Bobby Kotick. Now, the company's employees also held 2 walkouts following the California investigation and major lawsuit into the company's employment practices. And again, last month, following the release of an investigative report by the Wall Street Journal on the now embattled CEO. Even shareholders have gotten involved in order to get Kotick to resign or to be removed by the board. The board, unfortunately, is backing Kotick because Kotick seems to be making the company money. Now, you had the sudden firings at Raven, which had affected employees even in good standing. And claiming that Raven had promised them positive changes, even in some cases leading to certain employees accepting a delay in raises and promotions, then getting fired. So, what a disaster. As a result of all of this going on, we have seen unprecedented worker solidarity. And so, you have strikes, you have workers that are not working at the Raven studios that are standing up, getting on the picket line and saying, all right, let's do this. Now, the games industry does not have a union. It is one of the non-unionized sectors in our economy. But workers have banded together to get together. They're trying to form a union, and they're practicing strikes. And ABK is the main one. They're trying to form one. As I've reported before, instead of taking the demands of the workers seriously in this group, Activision Blizzard instead hired a union busting firm, Wilmer Hale. Wilmer Hale is the same company that worked with Amazon to crush their unionization effort. And so That's the response from them, not taking any of their concerns seriously, firing different people, hiring on these union-busting firms. And so, last straw. The Raven thing was the last straw. And they said, look, we're done, okay? We are going on strike. We're not going to put up with this anymore until Kotick is gone. And more changes are made at this company, the changes that we had been asking for. And of course, those are changes in basically, how employees are treated. They're asking for fair compensation. They're asking for an end to crunch culture. And they're asking for people who are implicated in the sexual harassment to be removed. And these are not big asks. These are the basics of what, people should be, should have when working. Again, to be respected at work, to not be sexually harassed, to get fair benefits and fair pay, and not end up having to do, 16-hour days, 7 days a week in this massive crunch culture. Again, the very basics. The very basics. And understand, this has been going on in the games industry for a long time. If you've been following it, I have. Not only am I somebody who supports workers' rights and unionization efforts and worker solidarity, I'm also a big gamer. I enjoy video games. I love playing video games. And so seeing what's happened to the games industry over the last at least 10 years, and probably longer, has been devastating. Again, for people who wanted to work in the games industry, working at Blizzard would have been a dream for them. But instead, it's a nightmare. You have the overwork, you have the time crunches, you have the massive deadlines, and the rampant sexual harassment for female employees. Workers, again, put in 16-hour days, 7 days a week to try to get the games out. And you know what that does? It burns out talent. It absolutely burns out talent. It also destroys creativity, which reduces the quality of games. Again, you have monetization, the switch to always online gaming, loot boxes for massive monetization. Again, all of this stuff is not only, the games industry is not only anti-consumer, it's also massively anti-worker. And there's the rush to get them out on time for the publishers, the shareholders, and of course, gamers themselves. And the result of all of this, you have massively broken, buggy games that get released to incredibly bad reviews with deep monetization. And an example of that, of course, look, Anthem. Anthem's a good example of a disaster. So deeply uninspired that game was. And again, I played it. There was a little bit of potential. The flying mechanics were fun, but it was just copy paste. Very small play area, weird loading screens in places where there shouldn't be, serious issues. And you can point at other games as an example of crunch culture. And this was, again, BioWare Magic. And they were taken over by Electronic Arts, EA, one of the worst offenders in the entire games industry. But they're being rivaled by Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft, which are also such disasters. But even you even had good games that have suffered. Cyberpunk 2077. When it was released, it was a broken, buggy mess. On console, it was so bad that it had to get pulled from the PlayStation Store. And by the way, Sony also having sexual harassment issues for their employees. And so now the thing is, 2077, Cyberpunk actually is not a bad game itself. It just, it's good when it works. It's good when it works. One of the few good stories in gaming lately is Final Fantasy XIV. That's a game that I really enjoy. I play it. I'm subbed. That game went through a lot. It got scrapped at the beginning because it was an absolute mess, a disaster. Once again, rushed, right? Then new guy took over, scrapped it completely. They went back to the drawing board, they re-released it, and it's actually good now. it's a good game now. They put out content pretty regularly. And as far as I know, they haven't had any issues with crunch or sexual harassment. Now, they have had problems. They just came out with a new expansion. And, the queues are horrible waiting to get into that game. But, hey, launches are never pretty. They're just never pretty. But look, as I said before, there are other issues with other publishers that are disastrous. The industry is just a horrible place for workers to work. And of course, it's much worse for women. Yesterday, a Blizzard employee named Christine had recounted her own experience with sexual harassment, assault, and discrimination. She would recall getting sexual requests from her supervisors, and when, of course, she'd tell HR, human resources, well, they'd do nothing, they'd cover it up. And of course, understand that human resources is not on your side. They've never been on your side. They're not your friend. They're actually literally part of the company. And so they're there to try to cover up for this and to protect the companies itself. And so that's why, by the way, the fact that HR is so terrible is the reason why you need to band together with your fellow employees, your fellow workers in a union. That's why this is so important. If, Activision Blizzard were to unionize, and by the way, more positive union news, Starbucks. There was a Starbucks store that just passed a union vote and became unionized. And so that's a huge step for workers in that industry. And now hopefully we get to see a union push here. But they need your help. I'm going to put a link in the description to a tweet by ABK for a strike fund. They don't have a union. They don't have the money to sustain a strike. They need your help. They need donations. They need support. They need solidarity to actually try to hold Kotick and the company and the industry itself accountable for the ways that they have treated their workers in the past and currently. And so please go to that link. Please support them. Do mutual aid. Help them out with their strike fund so we can finally get some justice for these workers that have been mistreated and to change the industry for the better. Not just for the workers themselves, but also the games. The love of games. Good workers, better workers, workers that are taken care of by the company, better companies produce better games. And that's a fact. Please support your fellow workers and show some solidarity. All right. That's all I got. Whew. Thank you all for growing down the nation. Hey, hold on. There's insanity in the control room.
There's insanity in the control room.
All right. Anyway, we're done with the show. That's all the stories that we have. Sorry, you missed a Tucker Carlson story. We start the show at 4 p.m. Eastern. So next time you want to tune in, it'll be put up later on YouTube, so you can always check that out if you want to. We put up about 4 to 5 videos a day on our YouTube channel, so yeah, go check that out. Subscribe so you don't miss notifications, all that wonderful stuff. So let me go to Twitch here and thank Kathleen for resubbing for a month at Tier 1. Appreciate that. 5 months subiversary. Nice. Nice. All right. Go to YouTube here. No super chats, unfortunately, but if you want to, that's one way you can support us. You can support us by going to Patreon as well. Patreon.com/ChefWaldorf. Stars, bits, and all the different platforms. Wonderful stuff. Free Donziger, absolutely. 100%. All right. Anyway, let's do it. Let's raid. We're going to raid over here to Left Flank Vets. We haven't done that in a while. So everybody give them a follow as well and send them and tell them Jeff sent you. Oh, it's Donziger free. Well, that's fantastic news. Wonderful. And thank you, Thermodynamics, for the very kind 10 pounds. Really, really appreciate that. I'm sorry, 10 euro. I'm really bad with my international monies. But thank you so much anyway. I really, really appreciate it. All right. Oh, yeah. Happy workers, better games, more profits, says S85. That's another reason. It's actually good for capitalism when you treat your workers well. I know. Crazy, crazy thought. All right, anyway. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See y'all tomorrow.
Please clap. Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Amazing. Beta.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.